watching you for hours gone by. I remember telling you my secrets. Oh, Mauricio. I think that throughout our lives, we all often find ourselves living in and around events that one day will be turned as great historical moments or dramatic turn of events without even realizing that we're in the eye of the storm. Each of us goes forward on our own trajectories, sometimes with blinders, sometimes with eyes wide open, to pursue our destinies. I grew up in the 1960s in America with such a huge cultural and social revolution underway, but I was young and I didn't realize the full effect of things until much later. Obviously, the changes were in the wind, and so we thought and felt in the music, in the inspiration of the ideas of the song writers and the poets, in the clothing, in the changing attitudes, but we could never have defined it at the time as it was just normal life for us growing up. Then I felt a great shift in the Americas in the 80s and the 90s when the quaint local environments began to be torn down and replaced by uniform shopping malls and chain restaurants. When the once specialness of towns, countrysides, and villages began to all look the same, that was when I decided it was time to leave the USA. I have returned to your door, still the same as ever as it was before. You have a place at my core. I long to see you. I long to see you. I long to see you once Later, being married to an Italian documentary filmmaker who for 14 years filmed every public talk and spiritual ceremony of an extraordinary personality. Her name was Sri Mataji Nirmala Devi, who embodied probably the most outstanding turn of events that I have ever experienced. She gave the experience of self-realization en masse for free to all who were interested. She allowed us to understand that a mother energy known as Kundalini within our subtle system was innate and was described by Buddha when he received his enlightenment beneath the banyan tree, spoken of by Christ as the Holy Spirit, and what the apostles experienced on the day of Pentecost. When tongues of flames appeared on their heads, it was also, and in the Sufi religion, spoken of as the Ru. According to Lao Tse, it was the Qi. She taught us how to raise this Kundalini energy within us and to meditate and to cure us of many types of illness, both physically, mentally, and spiritually. In short, how to evolve and how to embrace the essence of all of the incarnations, saints, and prophets throughout history as part of one spiritual tree without succumbing to the wiles of religion, which has always been a dangerous derivative. Her words and actions encouraged humanity to evolve, saying that the differences between men were not national, racial, or religious, but evolutionary. As I worked on myself, I began to notice that I was often in very dynamic situations, which have been considered historical. In August 2001, my husband and I went to Syria and Iraq to follow an Italian champion cyclist who rode from Damascus to Baghdad on his bicycle through the desert in temperatures of 50 degrees centigrade to protest the United States embargo against Iraq. Little did we know that it would be the last time that anyone would see Iraq as it was during that period. Run down, militarily controlled, but functional. Directly after this trip, in September of the same year, I went to the United States to visit my family. There, I was shocked and appalled, as was everyone, watching the fall of the New York City Twin Towers, indirect. 3 days later, I had to fly back through New York City in order to return to New York City and experience the effects of an abandoned airport with a complete lack of transportation and communication system in one of the most efficient cities of the world, one in which I had spent 10 years of my life studying and working. The Big Apple, a city where people usually never communicate with each other, with those they don't know in public places. But at that time, the lonely buses were filled with heartfelt communication between strangers. Once again, I find myself in a unique historical moment in a country that I never could have imagined living in, Burma or Myanmar. My husband and I arrived here 3 years ago for an interesting job proposition, just after the political climate of a formidable military regime began to shift grudgingly towards democracy. We've lived amongst these people, feeling their beauty, their innocence, and their gracious acceptance of fate, yet their relentless desire for freedom and liberty. Their hearts have been embodied in the figure of Aung San Suu Kyi, whose history and legacy we have read with awe and respect. Nobel Peace Laureate, she's truly a great historical figure, on par with Mahatma Gandhi and Martin Luther King, among other great writers of 20th century democracy. In terms of leading an entire nation or peoples out of bondage towards freedom, as always, it's a very long and laborious journey, especially if you move with dignity in the realm of non-violent activism. So here we are in the first week of November 2015 on the eve of the national elections at Shwedagon Pagoda, which will mark the turning point for Burma's future. Will the NLD, or National League for Democracy, have the chance to succeed in gaining 65 to 75% of the parliamentary seats, thus a landslide victory, as in the past? Or will the current regime, still managed by the former military leaders, once again find decisive tricks and games to maintain their power and push democracy to an even later date? A collective lust for power and financial resources blinds men to all the greater treasures of humanity. Loving kindness in Buddhist terms for all living things. This is indeed a battle between the haves and the have-nots, but the more subtle war is waged on the evolutionary stage. And it's a question of consciousness. Does Myanmar, along with world support, have the critical mass of consciousness to tip the scales in favor of justice and liberty? This is the tail question. Or are we still caught at the lower levels of our ascent? This election will be a chance to measure our collective state of evolution. The gods, saints, incarnations, deities, and prophets be with us as humanity once again battles for justice, over its lower forms of greed and lust. One of the oldest truths in the world reads, "Money is the root of all evil." Are we strong and deep enough to defeat it?